Welcome to the first daily 49ers roster update. Today was report day at training camp. Jimmy Garoppolo just passed his physical. In case you wanted the news update, there it is. But with it being the first day of camp and with practice starting on Wednesday and this exciting 2022 season ahead, wanted to take the channel to the next level. And that means daily roster updates because we know that they get complicated. Transactions seem to happen on a daily basis in the NFL. And then on top of transactions, you just have a lot of roster movement, right? You have a lot of evaluation, a lot of reporting that has to happen so that people can make sense of the 90-man roster and the 53-man projection. So I got a lot of good information from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch today, and I feel that I should share it with you. That's why this is going to be a daily feature, the 49ers roster update. So I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to go ahead and show you what I have prepared for you. Those of you who are new here haven't seen this yet, but those of you who aren't new here have probably seen this. This is the 49ers 90-man depth chart that I keep up on Google Sheets. So I'm going to copy and paste the link. I'm going to put that into the chat section. You can follow along with me as we go through it. And obviously, I'm going to also want you to check out what I wrote on The Athletic. 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan. We have moved on to Trey Lance and an article here about Trey Lance's potential big playability, moving off schedule, big playability that comes from George Kittle. Although I already made a video about Trey Lance a little bit earlier today. That one had a lot of viewers. So go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure that you see what I put out a little bit earlier. But this is going to be the first installment of what's going to be a regular installment, the 49ers daily roster update. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're ready for all of this. We're going to go through a lot of names, a lot of 49ers roster news in this video. And as you know, it's necessary, I'm going to pop that Google Doc open. So make sure that you're ready to check that out. The link again is in the chat section. So first things first, the 49ers have opened training camp relatively healthy. Only 3 players on unavailable lists, 2 on PUP, that's physically unable to perform. It's Jason Verrett and Charlie Werner, and 1 on NFI, that sounds for non-football injury. That's Kalia Davis. Now, Kalia Davis technically was a football injury, but it happened in college. He tore his ACL playing for Central Florida. So if the injury happens away from the NFL, then it technically classifies as a non-football injury. So same effect though. Kalia Davis, Jason Verrett, and Charlie Werner cannot practice at the start of training camp. They can be activated from their various lists, NFI or PUP, at any point. But if they're not activated, they can't practice. We, however, are not surprised by any of this. Jason Verrett's coming off the torn ACL in week 1 of the 2021 season against Detroit. We thought that he might be a PUP guy at the start of the season. He indeed will be, at least at the start of training camp. And we'll see if he is able to reintegrate at some point to be able to play in week 1. But even if not, remember that Jason Verrett, that's like house money for the 49ers this year. Found money, maybe I should say more accurately. They're not relying on Jason Verrett. Last season they were, and that was a flaw in the construction of the 49ers roster. This season, they're not relying on the guy. This season, they can afford to have Jason Verrett not play at all, and they'll be fine. Kind of like 2020, right? In 2020, it was a nice boost to have Verrett. He played Pro Bowl caliber football. The 49ers benefited from that, but they had him on a flyer deal. They weren't paying him any guaranteed money. And then he surprised them. He showed up and he balled out in that 2020 season. Well, the 49ers want something similar here in 2022. But they have Charvarius Ward and they have Emmanuel Mosley slated to start at training camp tomorrow in the first practice at those cornerback positions. So Charlie Werner is the one that we didn't know about. He had core muscle surgery this offseason. And that makes me wonder, does Charlie Werner's absence open up a tight end spot? Because we can look at the roster right now. This is the tight end position. Go down to the middle of the offensive section. As you can see, I have different columns. I have a starter. I have depth 1 and depth 2. Starter, depth 1 and depth 2. Everything in gold over here on the left side is on the inside of the projected 53-man roster. So I do project those players will make the team on the August 30th cut down. And on the right side in red, you have either practice squad / bubble guys, practice squad candidates, or you have the PUP / NFI list in pink over here. So it all adds up to the 90-man roster. But depending on where a player is on here, that's, kind of how we handicap where they're going to end up come August 30th. And if you look at the tight end room, well, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total bodies moving across, with George Kittle being the top player at tight end. But Charlie Werner, now that he's moved from my 53-man projection to the PUP list, for at least for now, that might open at least a near-term, short-term tight end spot for competition with the 49ers, because you look at other 49ers roster machinations. They just signed Robert Nkemdiche, who worked out for them, former first-round pick defensive tackle. So I have Nkemdiche now on the 90-man roster down here in the defensive line room at defensive tackle. But since they've signed Nkemdiche, they may have a relatively corresponding move coming, and that is Dee Ford. He will be released or he will retire in the coming days. That was verified by John Lynch today. So Nkemdiche brings the 49ers to 90, which is the limit. But Dee Ford, I've already erased from this sheet. That brings them back down to 89, which means they have one spot that they can fill, or they will have one spot to fill this week. And my question is, since Charlie Werner's on PUP, and since I only have 3 players right now on the projected 53 for the time being, will the 49ers bring in another tight end to compete with George Kittle? As of right now, Tyler Kroft, veteran, used to play for the Bengals and the Jets. Ross Dwelley on the inside of the picture, but they also have some other veterans they signed this offseason. Jordan Matthews was with the team last year, Troy Fumagalli, and Tanner Hudson, who has a penchant for making some nice one-handed catches. Jimmy Garoppolo, as I did mention, has passed his physical. That's good news for the 49ers, because they are no longer on the hook for his $7.5 million injury guarantee. And it also means that, it's more likely that somebody's going to want to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's a good step in the right direction. But I would not expect Jimmy Garoppolo to practice with the 49ers, because John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan insinuated that he'd just be kind of throwing off on the side. And I do think that the 49ers do want to give Trey Lance the appropriate space. We know how the media likes to turn stuff into a circus. Well, if you have Jimmy Garoppolo out there, that might turn stuff into a little too much of a circus. But Jimmy Garoppolo is still going to stay part of the 49ers for the time being. This is Shanahan's quote today on Jimmy Garoppolo. You also can't just give one of the better quarterbacks in the league away just to make him available for no reason to the whole world. So the 49ers are going to wait this out. They're going to see if a trade market does materialize. You think of Cleveland. Jeff Howe from The Athletic reported that Cleveland is in a situation where they're expecting a 4 to 8 game suspension for Deshaun Watson. When that comes down, what will their thought process be? Houston Texans, do they want to insulate the quarterback room to be more competitive? Jimmy Garoppolo would be an immediate upgrade, at least in the short term, over Davis Mills. And the New York Giants are being tossed around as a potential team outside the 49ers division. Daniel Jones may not be it in New York, and maybe they'll want Jimmy Garoppolo. Chicago guy, has played on the East Coast in New England. I don't know. Stuff can develop. There could be a mystery team in there that we don't even know yet based on an injury that hasn't even happened yet. So the 49ers are going to keep their options open as far as Jimmy Garoppolo goes. But the roster news for the sake of this series is that Jimmy Garoppolo has indeed passed his physical. So that should give the 49ers a lot more flexibility moving forward, but I wouldn't expect him to practice. John Lynch talked about Deebo Samuel today. We're hopeful that in the near future, we'll be able to announce something that's exciting for everyone involved. Long story short, the 49ers are negotiating with Samuel, or I guess technically with his agent, Tory Dandy. That relationship is thawed out. The communication is happening now. It, was frozen out there for a while in the offseason, and John Lynch didn't appear to suggest that anything was imminent with Deebo Samuel, but Deebo was in the building on report day on Tuesday, and he may even be out on the practice field on Wednesday. It sounds like at least the 49ers think that this is going to be reaching a conclusion that both Deebo Samuel and the 49ers are happy with. So we'll track to see if Deebo Samuel's out on that practice field on Wednesday. But as of right now, there's a lot of optimism for the 49ers that all the drama from this offseason was just that. It was just drama. And they had contractual leverage the whole time. They decided to hold true to that leverage, and now it does really seem that they will get a new contract done with Deebo Samuel. No surprise, arm fatigue stories were fake. Yeah, Kyle Shanahan said that Trey Lance's arm was sore one day during training camp last year, but everybody's arm is sore at one point during training camp. That's just the nature of the quarterback position. So this was the most overblown joke that I've ever heard. Arm fatigue and 49ers being concerned about it regarding Trey Lance. I said it was embarrassing back when it actually came up onto the radar on this YouTube channel, and it certainly looks embarrassing right now. Kyle Shanahan mentioned this about Trey Lance and Steve Young, who spoke to Trey Lance this offseason. I hope they talk all the time. Steve Young's one of my favorite players of all time, one of my favorite people of all time. You know what? In today's article that I wrote about Trey Lance, I talk about Steve Young and John Elway. Maybe I should pop this one open on the screen. Got to make it a little bit narrower so it fits a little bit better. Playing a little producer at the same time that I'm talking here. There it is. I had a Steve Young, John Elway line right here. Shanahan's dad, Mike Shanahan, enjoyed that pairing and rode it to the Super Bowl success with two Hall of Fame quarterbacks. He was the 49ers offensive coordinator from 92 to 94 when Steve Young was under center, and Denver's head coach after that when John Elway was at the controls. Both Young and Elway combined passing precision with athleticism that could demoralize defenses at pivotal junctures. So, in an ideal world, Trey Lance becomes Steve Young, right? A revolutionary quarterback back in the 90s and the 80s before then. Gets away again. That's what the 49ers want out of Trey Lance. They want that ability to run, but they also want that pocket passing precision, something that Bill Walsh had to drag out of Steve Young over the years. And ultimately, he got it. When Young retired, he had the highest passer rating of all time. So Steve Young was a legend. Anytime he talks to Trey Lance, the 49ers are happy about that, as Kyle Shanahan's quote suggests. John Lynch mentioned something interesting about Nick Bosa's contract. He said today it's more likely that it's something that will be addressed next year and not this year, but no absolutes from John Lynch. It is possible this year. I would, really encourage you to keep in mind that Nick Bosa's older brother, Joey, didn't sign his contract with the Chargers until after year 4. That was a lucrative record extension. It's just post year 3 right now for Nick Bosa. So if Nick follows the same schedule as Joey, that extension won't come until next offseason. So let's stay tuned for that. But this was the first time that John Lynch had alluded to that possibility during the press conference today. He did, in case that worries you, say this as well. As long as we're here, Nick Bosa is going to be a part of the Niners, and he's going to get paid handsomely to do so. So that should settle things. Nick Bosa is one of the best pass rushers in football. The 49ers would be out of their minds to not want to keep him on their roster. They talked about the offensive line competition today. This was Kyle Shanahan's quote. He said it's going to be musical chairs during training camp at center and right guard, with Jake Brendel and Daniel Brunskill competing for that center position. And then if Brunskill's moving and competing for center, well, that means that somebody else is going to be competing for that right guard spot. So why don't we pop open the 49ers 90-man depth chart one more time? There it is. Make it a little bit wider. We can talk about some of the possibilities on this roster. And as you can see along that offensive line, you have Brendel as the first string center, Brunskill as the first string right guard. But if Brunskill starts competing for center, well, then maybe second-year man Jalen Moore is going to get a chance at right guard. I don't think that you're going to have the rookies be serious contenders, at least right off the bat. Nick Zakelj and Spencer Burford, those are center and left guard / right guard options of the future. But you might look at somebody like Keaton Sutherland, a veteran who has actually started a game at center before for the Cincinnati Bengals. You might see him as somebody competing. And it'll be interesting to see what a player like Donovan West, undrafted free agent, he's a rookie, so I don't expect great things right away, but it'll be interesting to see where he is as part of that rotation at center. So when we talk about musical chairs, we talk about all those guys. We talk about Colton McKivitz, who also has guard versatility for the 49ers, and Justin School, who's played some guard for the 49ers. They're confident in all the depth that they have at this position. I'm, a little bit more hesitant to coordinate them along the offensive line. I think there's a lot of work remaining to be done, but I'm just relaying the 49ers plan, and that's what it is. Musical chairs headlined by Jake Brendel and Daniel Brunskill up front. More news right here. Mike McGlinchey, Javon Kinlaw, and Azeez Al-Shire all cleared the practice. So those of you who are familiar with this spreadsheet depth chart before probably noticed that I used to have McGlinchey, Al-Shire, and Javon Kinlaw in pink, but I have removed those designations today. So the 49ers have a fairly clean bill of health to open up this training camp. You've got a lot more normal colors than the pink injured color. That's for sure on this roster. Moving down, Shanahan in general about this 49ers roster. I feel about as good about this roster as I have in my 6 years with the 49ers. Remember that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch signed 6-year contracts, or Shanahan did, with the 49ers back in 2017 when he joined the team. January 2017, right before the Super Bowl, when Shanahan coached the Falcons against the Patriots. Well, we're now entering year 6, and the 49ers have been to a Super Bowl. They've been to an NFC championship game, so 2 NFC title games in the Super Bowl. All that remains is to win the Super Bowl. They've established and met a lot of the goals as far as building a winning culture, and Shanahan believes that he's got a sustainable, strong roster. In fact, today he said that he feels as good about the roster as he has in his 6 years with the 49ers. So that's the 15-minute roster update. I want to do this every day, so subscribe to the channel. Today, there was a lot of stuff. We kind of hit it in rapid-fire fashion. There's going to be a lot of stuff throughout training camp. I'll be out on that field every day, play some videos for you, maybe talk a little bit about who made a move during training camp, keep you up to date on how the 49ers are developing. But again, this sheet right here, this is your best friend if you want to keep track of a complex process. And I'll do my best to stay on top of it for you, communicate it all in the simplest terms, and hopefully we can have a fun season. So subscribe now. You'll get the 49ers daily roster update. Check out The Athletic as well. I have that piece about Trey Lance and his off-schedule throwing capabilities today. Maybe we'll include a Q&A as part of this. Why not? Didn't answer too many questions a little bit earlier. So let's go. Q&A. Jimmy G did pass his physical. I do host the 49ers podcast with Matt Barrows. It's a good 49ers podcast. We'll be recording our first episode of the season coming up here in a few days. Let's see. Any questions? I don't see many questions here. There is really exciting stuff going on, so thanks for that. Is anyone going to camp tomorrow? Mike's asking, not me. No, I'm not a 49ers fan. I'm just a reporter. That is a 49ers jersey. It's just for decoration, though. I think that 17 is like my lucky number. So that's number 17. It's not an Emmanuel Sanders jersey. It's just a jersey. And I thought that it added some nice ambiance to the video. How do I feel about the O-line's run blocking ability? I think they're good run blockers. I think that's what they're built to do. And I think that's the 49ers' comparative advantage. However, when you're good at run blocking, you're usually a little bit lighter. You're usually a little bit more agile. And the problem comes in anchoring and pass protection. So I think they're a little bit more vulnerable to some bull rushes. Now, that's why they went out and got Aaron Banks. He's a bigger lineman than the 49ers have normally had. But Jake Brendel, I mean, he's a mobile center. He's not a big center. So I like the run blocking. I'm still concerned about the pass protection for the 49ers. The link for the spreadsheet is in the comment section a little bit higher. If you want me to get it again, I'd be happy to do so. I'll put it into the chat right now. There you go. It's up. Can I explain the schedule for training camp? Well, they're 4 days on, 1 day off. So we're going to have 4 straight days of practice, day off on Sunday, then 3 days on, 1 day off after that. I'm guessing pads are going to come on maybe Saturday. I think they're going to do at least a couple days without pads here. They're probably going to come on later in the week. Haven't gotten that schedule yet from Kyle Shanahan, but I can ask him about it tomorrow. Do you think the roster looks better and deeper in 2019? Kyle Shanahan thinks it has a chance to. They got to find a second edge rusher. They've got options between Amenahu, Willis, Sansa Mebucom, and Drake Jackson, but somebody's got to take that D Ford spot. That's big. Linebackers, yes, I think they're better, deeper. Secondary, yeah, I think it's better and deeper. Offensive line's got the question marks I'm talking about, but if it can prove itself depth-wise, you're good. They're better at receiver. They're better at tight end. And we'll see what Trey Lance does at quarterback. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is a good quarterback for the 49ers. 2019 put up a good year. So Lance has some big shoes to fill. They think he can. He's got the physical skill set. But ultimately, the depth of the roster, so much of it's going to hinge on how good the quarterback is. Quality and depth of the roster is very correlated to the quality of the quarterback position. Barrows and I run the Here's the Catch podcast, like The Catch with Dwight Clark. It's called Here's the Catch. You can go check it out. Yes, I will get as much footage of Lance throwing tomorrow as possible, which is why you should subscribe to the channel because you're going to see it all right here. I'll get as much as I can today. Yep, they signed Robert Nkemdiche today, former first-round draft pick. He's had some discipline issues in the past. So, the last sack came in 2018. So it's nothing to do cartwheels about right now, but it adds depth to that D-line room. D Ford's not going to be part of the 49ers for much longer. So they still have 16 defensive linemen right now, 17 as we speak, but it will stay at 16 for the time being. How much of a setback would it be if Werner isn't able to play? I don't think it'll be a huge setback. I think they have depth around par with Warner at that tight end position, at Tyler Croft and Troy Fumagalli. It's a much bigger deal if Kittle can't play, but you want Werner to keep on developing. Nickel seems to be the biggest question in the secondary. What are you expecting? I think Darquez Denard is going to start camp in the driver's seat at that position. So we'll see what happens. But you also have other options. You have the guy for the future and Samuel Womack drafted, but he's a rookie, and I don't expect too much of rookies early on. If 12 D linemen make this team, which room gets squeezed? That's a great question. Maybe the tight end room loses an extra guy, maybe offensive line, practice squad's a guy like Nick Zakel. It's a great question, but I think you're going to see 11 defensive linemen at least at this point. It also depends on injuries. If some guys get hurt, then you may not have to do that. So we will see. But that would be very on brand for the 49ers to carry 12 defensive linemen. Besides Nick Bosa's extension, Ayuk will be in line, right? Ayuk will only be in line with a Debo-like situation if he has a Debo-like 2022 season, and that would be a good problem for the 49ers. Debo was a superstar last year. Again, they were over 4x as efficient when he was on the field versus when he was off of it. So that's why, he's asking for all that money. It was also an overheated wide receiver market. So that was exceptional. I don't know if Ayuk will be in the same boat unless he also goes gangbusters in a similar kind of way in this 2022 season. All right, guys. Good stuff. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for joining the show. I have to go eat a burrito, then I have to be up early for training camp tomorrow. So this is going to be a usual thing. It's going to be a regular feature. So I want you all to subscribe to the channel because we're going to get into the 49ers more in depth than anywhere else, both on the Athletic through the podcast, blanketing the 49ers in 2022 with coverage. By the way, both Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle complimented this beard today. So there you have it. I think you should subscribe to the beard and to the channel for that reason. Everybody take care.